I was really debating if I was going to do this tour here today or not, and this is the tour going through the Proven Winner perennial beds. We've done a month-to-month walk through these beds ever since April, and I'm like, it's October, is there enough to show? And although there's not as much to show as what there was to show earlier on in the season, I still think it's worth going out today and showing you what is still blooming here in this Zone 6A garden in West Michigan in the Proven Winner trial bed. So this will be a little shorter than maybe what some of the videos were earlier this summer. There's not going to be as much color, so I'm not promising you, gorgeous blooms. But for those of you who have been following along with this series, I think that it's important that I do get out here and show you what is still blooming here in October. So let's go ahead and take a walk through the garden. Since this is a Proven Winner video featuring the Proven Winner plants, there are some plants that are kind of scattered around beyond the two initial beds. So I wanted to quickly show you the Alstroemeria. So the three Alstroemeria that are in the Proven Winners lineup are doing still very well for this time of year. Even to be honest, if it was July right now and we saw this many flowers, I would be super impressed. Just look at that, just a sea of gorgeous blooms. So definitely this is the first plant you should put on your list if you're looking for something that's gonna give you color from early season to late summer. Any Alstroemeria is going to be a fantastic choice. All right, so now we're back to the original two beds that I usually feature. Like I said, though, they've added a few new beds in, so I wanted to hit on the things that were blooming in those beds as well, since this is primarily a Proven Winners perennial video. So we're just going to stop at things that have color. So here we have the Gypsophilia Festival Star Baby's Breath, and it's still kicking out a lot of color. Baby's Breath makes a great cut flower, and it's also great for your drought-tolerant spaces in the garden. Continuing along, we've got some Delosperma. This plant was blooming in May, maybe even June, and this is the Delosperma Orchid Flash. So it is kicking out more blooms. And I think before I go much further, I do need to say it's been a odd fall this year here in Michigan. It's been very warm. We haven't had a frost yet. And these plants are really almost kind of, some of them starting to take on their second life. So plants that had died back or kind of gotten just, nasty looking throughout the heat of the summer and the fall are putting on new growth deep down in the base of the plant. So some of them are just trying to do over the season. So it's kind of interesting to see, to be honest, but we are ready for that frost, I think. Some pineapple lilies. So these flowers are definitely done, but even though they're done, they add some cool interest late in the season. Even the hibiscus, the rose mallow, they are trying to kick out some more blooms, which I've not ever seen this before. Usually the plant just looks kind of like what we're seeing here. All the flowers come off and they're kind of stick-like. But a lot of them here and even at my house and at the garden center, they're still putting on some new growth with some new blooms. So it's kind of neat to see they're big splashes of those flowers here late in the season. Grasses are doing great. Totem pole grass. We've got the Pennisetum grass. I think this one is Cheyenne Sky. You would expect for grasses to be awesome this time of year. Here's an area that's definitely tired, but there's a few Leucanthemum, the marshmallow. They're kicking out a few new flowers. Now, do these look pretty right now? No, they don't look pretty, not at all. But the fact that they're kicking out flowers and giving us just a little bit of something to look at, I don't know, I think that's kind of fun. The sedum, looking pretty good. Dark foliage with the red blooms. That's really popping in the garden. Stokesia, we've got the white and the purple Stokesia. They're putting on a few more flowers. Stokesia are another one of those long blooming perennials. So after they're done blooming, if you give them a light trim, or even if you don't, sometimes they'll kick out a second round of blooms. There's a lot of buds on these plants right now. So if we had a longer season, these would be continuing to put on color in a surprising amount. The Nepeta, cat's pajamas, they're still putting on some flowers there. Not quite as colorful as what they are in the summer, but again, what do we expect? I mean, it's October. Things aren't supposed to be giving us color. There's some more of that Alstroemeria in there, which is really pretty. I love, because they're so tall, how they just really, they draw your eye and they keep your eye moving as you're walking through the garden. Some of the Nephophia, you're seeing the orange spikes, orange and yellow, that's the Nephophia blooming. They kind of continue to kick out flowers through the summer and a little bit into the fall. More of that pineapple lily, that's the Princess Bride there. That has some really cool texture, don't you think? So when they're blooming, the blooms are white or kind of a purpley color. Now that they're spent, they're more of a chartreuse green, but they add texture and interest into this bed. You're seeing some more Nephophia just kind of poked through. The Mengave are still doing their thing. I don't unfortunately know the names of the Mengaves, so I can't help you out with that. But you could go to the Walters Garden website and they have their Mengaves listed, so you could do a little research for yourself as to the different various Mengaves that are available. So Pennisetum Lemon Squeeze has chartreuse foliage, so even when it's not flowering, the foliage is a nice bright green. And look at that canopy of those soft fuzzy plumes just dancing in the breeze. I've mentioned it before in other videos. I think Pennisetum is probably one of my favorite ornamental grasses, just because it does, in my opinion, have the most impressive plumes on it. But there's a lot of great grasses out there, and I think it's important that you do add some grass into the garden, just because of the motion and the structure that they add into the landscape. Looks like our little kitty friend found us as we were making our way through the gardens today. I'm sure it's been a little quiet from around here with not as many visitors visiting the gardens this time of year. Look at that Amsonia. That is string theory, and it's starting to take on its fall color. Look at that bright yellow foliage. So this is a plant that blooms early summer, but it's often known for its great fall foliage change, and it's just starting to change. So we're seeing that bright yellow. But I anticipate as it continues to keep getting colder, we might also start seeing some little hints of orange in there as well. Just the texture of that foliage being so fine also adds a lot of cool interest into the garden. Urge to Spurge is a new euphorbia for 2026. And I wasn't sure what this was going to do for fall foliage, but look at the tips. It's got a little burgundy going on there. So that's putting on just, a little bit of interest, more than just a solid green. I think it's kind of cool looking. This is a plant that you have to put on your list for 2026. In the spring, I think it was May, this was just a mass of gorgeous yellow blooms. Got some more of the hibiscus there. Now these ones are done blooming, but you can see how they've got their nice burgundy foliage and how that's really standing out in the garden right now. So foliage interest. Niagara Falls panicum grass, which is that nice thin airy plumes blowing the breeze, very dense upright habit. Looking gorgeous right now. We've got the silver lining Artemisia. It's kind of petering out a little bit, but that silver foliage too, even this late in the season, puts on a pop in the garden. We'll see some sedum in here, I think, as we go along. We'll see if how they're looking. Nepeta, this is a catwalk queen Nepeta, new Nepeta for 2026. A little bit of bloom, but you can at least see what the mature habit of it looks like. Pretty low growing, little wider than what it is tall. If you sedum in there, you're seeing some dark color sedum. That's the back and black sedum. Black foliage, dark flowers. So adding a little contrast. Now this is something that's kind of not necessarily flower interest, but foliage interest. So, not even foliage, I guess we'll call them seed heads. This is a Stand By Me clematis. This was blooming, actually this bloomed quite a while throughout the season. But even now that the flowers are spent, look at the little seed heads on it. So that too adds a little interest to this fall garden. So you can trim them when they're done flowering, or you can just leave them. And as you can see here, there's all these little white puffy plumes, and that's all from the clematis. Dragon Slayer Yucca. This is a new variety coming out in 2026. Thick blades, adds nice texture into the garden. Would be great for like in a rock garden or areas that are more of a drought tolerant area, or areas that don't get as much water. But look at that. Doesn't that have some really great texture? And I love how the sun is just shining on it. Looks like the cat's liking it as well. It's following us around. Also some astilbe. You're seeing that dark foliage of the dark side of the moon astilbe. So these are blooming in July, but their foliage is looking really good even here late in the season. It breaks up some of those greens a little bit, so it helps add a little dimension and depth in the garden when you're adding in some of those different foliage colors. Doesn't it look pretty with that sun shining on it? It's just so shimmery and so nice. Heuchera is doing good. Heuchera is a semi-evergreen, kind of depends on where you live. This is the wild rose variety. And the little things you're seeing sticking up, those were all their flowers at one time. But right now it's just that beautiful rosy foliage, and with the sun shining on it, it really accentuates the color of the wild rose. We've got some schizocarium grass. This is Blue Heaven. This is another kind of a fun, different grass. A lot of times, maybe people don't even know about the schizocarium grass. It's a native grass, and look at how red it looks with that sun shining on it. It's just kind of blowing in the breeze, kind of really tall. The plumes aren't super plumy. I guess that might be what they would say a Heidiism on how I'm describing them. But they kind of look like they glisten, don't they? Doesn't it look like little sparkles on top of that grass? But the color of it is really pretty. So during the season, the foliage is a little bit more blue in color, but now that it's late in the season, it's really bringing out a lot of that rosy pink color. And I love how that looks in the garden. We actually just planted a bunch of this in one of our gardens as a mass planting. So I'm excited to show you as it grows up and matures how it looks. So as I mentioned, there wasn't a ton of color going on in the garden, but for those of you who've been avid watchers of this series, I'm thinking that you probably are taking some notes and have seen some things that either sparked your interest, or I know a lot of you have been taking notes too, just to see what the foliage of certain plants look like depending on where we're at in the season. So it's not always about the foliage, it's about the habit of the plant and what it's doing and when it's doing it. Thanks for walking through the garden with me today. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. And if you're new to our channel, we welcome you to subscribe. And if you are somebody who's been dedicated and have watched the entire series throughout the summer, I would love to let me know what you thought of it. For those of you who may have missed out, we'll be sure to put links in the description in our YouTube. So if you go into there, you can get the details of the other videos we've done throughout the summer. So if you want to binge watch and see what was blooming when, we're going to give you the links that you can do that. Thanks for watching. I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings.